Welcome to Inside Outside Innovation, episode 80. Today's episode is with Ari Popper from SciFutures. SciFutures is a fascinating blend of science fiction and corporate innovation in which sci-fi writers team up with corporations to imagine futures in their industry. Brian and Ari talked about how they make these imagined futures tangible and what the responsibility is of innovators as we continue in this era of technology. Reach out to Ari at SciFutures.com. Hi there, everyone. I'm Victory Clafter, the producer of Inside Outside Innovation. This is the podcast that brings you the latest insights from people who know the most about building lean businesses, innovating within corporations, and disrupting entire industries with passion and precision.
We live in such interesting times where the world is changing so quickly and big companies are really struggling to get their heads around the opportunities and changing culture. So I had an epiphany about 6 years ago, actually during a science fiction writers class, where I thought, sci-fi storytelling could be a really interesting way to help grease the wheels of innovation and get organizations inspired. So we basically work with our clients closely to help them get educated. So looking at the emerging technologies, the big trends, all the kind of disruptive forces that are influencing their business and actually peripheral businesses as well. And then we kind of co-create a kind of preferred future vision. And lots of companies have that. They have dedicated initiatives to understanding where the world's going, making sure they're kept up to speed on disruptive emerging technologies. But often they fall short in terms of really getting traction with that material. So our secret sauce is really kind of taking that and really making it work much harder for them through storytelling. So we work with actually close to 200 writers now, where we'll take clients' content that we've helped them shape, grounded in the science, facts, and emerging technologies. And then we'll hand it off to these phenomenal sci-fi writers who will then render these much more compelling, much more inspirational visions of where their business could be, still grounded in the facts and the information, but now it becomes a much more compelling kind of North Star for the organization to rally behind. And we spend quite a bit of time working on projects that do that.
So do your writers really try to push the corporation to think kind of transformationally, or how much of, the storytelling process really cuts across all horizons of innovation, from core innovation that's optimizing their existing business models all the way to, again, transformational things that are not their business at all currently?
Yeah, we definitely focus more on the latter, on the transformational, disruptive innovation. Although we have done work with clients that's closer in, just to help them bring that to life a bit more, make it resonate more. But we definitely lean more to the 5 to 10 year out mark with our clients.
Now, you work with some great companies like Pepsi and Visa and Ford. At the early stages, I'd imagine it was probably a little bit difficult potentially to kind of tell that story, like, hey, we're going to help you innovate, but we're going to do it through sci-fi storytelling. How did that process of actually building your company kind of come into place, and how easy or hard was it to kind of sell that vision to what are traditionally corporations that are maybe not as innovative or not thinking into the future the way you are?
Yeah, it's a great question. For some clients, it's very foreign to them, and they wouldn't go near it with a 10-foot barge pole. But for other clients, they just totally get it, just right on contact. They understand the power of it. It's as much as a corporate culture thing as it is as much as an individual or department thing. So there's certain people within companies that may be very traditional or conservative, but those individuals just totally understand the premise and what it does, and they will fight and really try and make it happen. And there are other clients who just are too afraid or, just don't want to go near it and feel it's too risky. And obviously they stay away. So there's a little bit of self-selection that happens. Right. But it isn't for everyone, although we think it could apply to anyone and should. But obviously for some companies, it just wouldn't work, and that's totally fine.
Talk a little bit about how, either case studies or otherwise, of how people are actually using the future focus and the story around that, and how are they applying that to the world business that they're in.
Yeah, I mean, we really try and emphasize the practical value of this work, not only to change culture, but also to invent new things. We're not doing this just to entertain. If people want to be entertained, they can go see a science fiction film, or watch one on Netflix. What it's really about is creating new IP and new possibilities for the organization that leads to meaningful behavior change. So the actual benefit really comes out of going through the process, because you get these kind of transformational understandings of where the business could be. Lots of new ideas get invented as you come out of the process. It's a very generative process. So if we haven't invented new IP or new businesses, or basically constructed new avenues of transformation, then in some ways we haven't been disruptive enough, or we haven't been effective. So yeah, it's not just about let's paint a vision. It's really about, let's paint a vision. Now let's figure out how to get there. What do we need to do today, the next year, 3 years, 5 years, to really have a chance of being relevant in that future? Mm-hmm. And so, some of the work that we've done with our clients has really demonstrated that in the way their business has transformed. And you mentioned Ford. I mean, that was a really amazing project where we actually created 3 different graphic novels for them, grounded in some phenomenal work that we did around the future of transportation and the future of mobility. And if you look at how Ford's transforming their business, it's really interesting that a lot of that work that we did along actually with the Futures company is now, essential strategy, and they've developed business units around it, and it's really fascinating to see it unfold. So yeah, it's definitely not just about visioning. It's much more about, okay, how do we stay relevant? How do we transform? And then what do we need to do?
Right, and probably a little bit of scare the crap out of them to make sure that they actually do take action.
Yeah, we do an exercise called the dystopian future, where we actually put our clients out of business. And in many ways, it's a much more interesting exercise than any of the others.
So tell me about the team, and how did you pull the right people around to actually execute on this vision?
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, a little bit of self-selection. People who like this idea and want to do this sort of work are attracted to us, and vice versa. But it's a great team because we have a unique combination of strategists, storytellers, but also folks who understand the practicalities around innovation and prototyping and emerging technologies. We have a big network of freelancers that work for us as well, so we can rely on outside resources too. And over time, it's really cool because when you work in the space, you really get to meet very interesting people, and your network extends quite rapidly. And also, the other beautiful thing about it, I call it the virtuous circle. The more work you do for clients, the smarter you get. Right. And then, the better you get for other clients too. So you get this really nice kind of spiraling up effect as well. But yeah, we have a big network, lots of sci-fi writers and experts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you actually do any of the prototyping or anything in the physical world as well, or? Yeah.
We physical prototypes. I've actually done a lot of building and fabricating of futuristic type business models and experiences. A lot of work in the payment space for Visa. We just recently completed a project for an automotive client, not Ford, another one, where we actually created physical artifacts from the future that they can use in workshops, which is turning out to be very effective. Yeah, it's really fun when you can actually build these kind of visionary, futuristic types of products and services. What's cool is also now with virtual reality is you can actually develop futuristic worlds in VR and put people in that, and you get a much more visceral understanding of what the future could look like and make it interactive. That's very interesting as well.
Excellent. So tell me, what's your favorite case study or story that you've had of a company that's gone through the particular process and you've actually seen the results at the other end and seen some, I guess, the future created?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, one of my favorites was actually one of our first projects, just because it was kind of the proof of concept that really worked. And it was for Lowe's Home Improvement Company. They hired us originally to help them reimagine how people would renovate their homes. And it's a bit of an old case study now, actually, which is kind of ironic. But at the time, it was really revolutionary. And what we did is we helped them really get a visceral understanding of what augmented reality and virtual reality could bring to their business, particularly in terms of removing the barriers and fear and guesswork around renovating a home. So we created some comic books and graphic novels for them, really painting a really interesting picture of how Lowe's could leverage those technologies. Out of that, they developed a work stream, and we prototyped, did a number of rapid prototypes, which they then took and worked with other companies and partnered with companies like Microsoft and really created a whole platform around that initial work that we did with them. So it was a really great use case, because what it showed was if you get the story right and you can capture the imagination of senior executives and they could see a pathway to really getting an advantage, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. And they really, to their credit, they took the risk and went out and did it. Very exciting when that happens. Yeah, so I think there's others. A lot of them are confidential, but these narratives, these kind of strategic narratives, serve many different purposes. So over time, as we're learning how our clients are using them, some of them are, yes, to really accelerate innovation, but others are as a way to attract new recruits. So it's essentially, look, this is a company that has a bold vision for the future. You want to be a part of it. Yeah, read this graphic novel or look at this video. So it's very good for attracting talent. Others use it as onboarding. So when new employees start, it's a good way for them to get grounded in the kind of vision and North Star of the organization. Some of it use it as a way to excite investors and outside and customers. So we did a series of podcasts for VMware, the network virtualization company. That was a really fun podcast. It was basically helping, essentially delivering a message that the classic science fiction film technology problems that they couldn't solve could be very easily solved with technologies today, and VMware's technologies as well. So it was a really fun kind of fictional romp through space and time, looking at classic sci-fi films like Star Wars and Star Trek, and then reimagining them using today's technologies. Again, just a really cool marketing piece for the company. Yeah.
Well, I think that's so important. Culture is probably the number one factor, reasons why corporations don't innovate. They're tied to their existing business models, and quite frankly, they hire and optimize for those existing business models. But as history has shown us, and this pace of disruption seems to be speeding up ever faster, and the ability to stay on top is harder and harder. So I think you're onto something as far as helping companies understand that what got them there won't get them there in the future. So
exactly, yeah, and it doesn't work for everyone. Some of our clients just couldn't make it work. They were too fearful, or too worried about losing their jobs, or making mistakes. The rules of innovation still apply. It's not a silver bullet. It's still risky and tricky, and that's what makes it interesting.
So are there any other final kind of tips or tricks for any of our audience who's kind of in that boat trying to get their organization to think and be a little bit more innovative? Any kind of things you can recommend that they should start thinking about or doing?
Yeah, I really do believe sincerely that we live in amazing times where there's so much opportunity, and really it's just getting out of our way and just giving ourselves the permission to dream and fail. And I think for me it's less about specifics. It's more a kind of rah-rah message. It's like, honestly, things that you think are science fiction or feel sci-fi like really aren't, because technologies are so amazing today, and there's such interesting opportunities that are kind of literally out there that you just need to believe in and just want to do. And with that kind of belief and will, truly extraordinary things can happen. So it's less, I would say, do this, do that. Certainly use storytelling. It's just an amazing way to get people on board. But it really is an amazing time. The other big kind of plug that I'm really big on is just the ethics of emerging technologies and trying to be a little bit more conscious about what we're bringing into the world. That's something that I'm very passionate about, because these technologies are so disruptive and really are transformational for us, not only in the business world, but as a species. Just being a little bit more deliberate and thoughtful about, just because we can build this doesn't mean we should. So really thinking through some of the consequences of action, or, inaction as well, is something that I'm very passionate about.
That's the end of another episode of Inside Outside Innovation. Thanks for listening. And thanks to Ari for taking time to speak with us. If you want to learn more about our team here at Econic, check out econic.co or insideoutside.io. Until next time, go out and innovate.